let's zoom in right there on the current administration and the current approach. I'm of the belief that we have 2, 3, maybe 4 years to make a meaningful difference to get the changes in the laws and treaties that we need. The administration is going to be here for the next 3 years, at least. So these are the cards that are dealt. What are your thoughts, hopes for, something like an international treaty with China coming from this administration, something like domestic regulation of some type?
Well, I think there is domestic regulation coming from the states, although so far it's weak. I think it's going to be very difficult to get this administration to see sense. I mean, every piece of rhetoric coming out from the president, the vice president, members of the cabinet, people around them like Peter Thiel, like Mark Andreessen, suggest that they don't get it at all. Part of it is this sort of the standard tech industry regulation stifles innovation. We can't have regulation because it'll slow us down.
Right.
There's a narrative that we can't allow ourselves to fall behind China, which doesn't have any regulation. So we can't have any regulation. That narrative is totally false.
Yeah.
China has quite a lot of regulation, possibly more strict than the EU. There are specific accuracy and performance requirements for large language models, for example, which, and the government imposes those. It tests the system. If you don't pass those tests, you don't get to put your product on the market.
Shocking. What do you mean? You can't just put a product on the market and let the market iteratively figure it out? Tell us what's wrong with our product?
That's not how they view it. No. And they have their own reasons, and I don't think we should be naive about how the Chinese Communist Party thinks about AI relative to its own power, and it certainly uses AI to maintain power and so on. But
we'll talk about that. How does it see it relative to, what is the view? I know you spend a good amount of time in China and sort of interfacing over there with academics and government.
A fair amount. I've been organizing a series of dialogues between initially Western scientists and Chinese scientists, but increasingly those dialogues have been attended by on the Western side, people like Eric Schmidt and Craig Mundy, who are influential people in policy circles. On the Chinese side, even people who are in positions of power within the government, and I sense a clear concern about safety from the Chinese hierarchy. Recently, for example, the number 2 in China, the premier, gave a speech in Shanghai where he explicitly acknowledged the risks and the need for global governance of AI and cooperation on this aspect.
And extinction in particular, or just sort of risk generally?
I don't remember that he used the word extinction, but the Bletchley Declaration from November 23, clearly states that there are potentially catastrophic risks from AI, and that was signed by 28 governments, including the U.S. and China. Quite a few Chinese politicians have talked about existential risk. In fact, I remember when I was in Geneva for the discussions about autonomous weapons, a Chinese ambassador to the CCW, the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, began his speech by quoting, he quoted Stephen Hawking as saying that AI will be the development of AI could be the most important event in human history, but possibly the last event in human history if we don't get it right. Oddly enough, that's actually piece of that article that I co-wrote with Stephen Hawking. That piece I wrote, but it's usually attributed to Stephen Hawking because he's much more famous than I am. And that's fine. I don't mind that at all. But it's kind of odd to hear the Chinese ambassador quoting me.
Quoting back your own stuff through.
Yeah, on how important this is. So I think, we can look at past examples. There's a lot of pessimism right now around the possibility of international agreements. The world order looks like it's very messed up. And I think we tend to just not remember, both in the international setting, that we have achieved agreements in the past on, for example, we recognize that CFCs were a risk to the ozone layer, that we need the ozone layer so we don't all get skin cancer.
Yeah.
And we acted decisively, against commercial interests, to fix that with the Montreal Protocol. People say, we can never ban any category of weapons, so we just have to resign ourselves to a world filled with killer robots. But, we did ban blinding laser weapons.
Yes.
Successfully, and they were never used in the battlefield, as far as we know.
Yeah.
But we did ban biological weapons. We did ban chemical weapons. There have been a few violations, but I think we're very glad that we came together and said, we don't want to live in a world like that.
Yeah.
And do we want to develop technology that we cannot control, that we don't understand how it works? It will be potentially far more powerful than human beings, and we would not have a say in whether we continue to exist. I can't see that that's a world we want to live in, but that is what we are moving towards unless governments act. So one of the AI company CEOs that I met with recently, his best case scenario is that we have a Chernobyl scale disaster.
This is one of the CEOs of one of the public AI companies.
Yep.
That's his best hope.
His
Is a warning shot of Chernobyl proportions.